Every Democrat going public is just another self-inflicted wound for the party.
I'm here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at the Republican National Convention for this part of our conversation on Pienaar and Friends. And our friends now for this part of the program, two heavy-duty, high-caliber American pundits, our very own at the Times, Hugh Tomlinson, back with me. Good to see you back, Hugh. And we've been joined by another one of our new friends, Ken Thomas, White House reporter at the Wall Street Journal. Welcome to you, Ken. Can I just start then with this story that was breaking literally just moments ago? The Democratic representative on Capitol Hill, Adam Schiff, calling on President Biden to drop out of the race and making clear, well, it's time, he says, for him to pass the torch. This is not insignificant, is it, Hugh?
No, it's a big deal, especially coming from California, obviously a Democratic stronghold. We knew that Schiff had spoken to donors at the weekend and discussed the possibility of a wipeout, a Democratic wipeout if Biden stays on the ticket. Now he's gone public with this. And it just adds to the drumbeat of pressure on Biden to step aside.
What do you make of it?
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, you have to remember that Adam Schiff is someone who's very close to Nancy Pelosi. So this could be viewed in some way as, maybe a proxy for how she views the situation right now. She has certainly kept her cards very close throughout this process. But I think, Adam Schiff is someone who's running for Senate in California. Very good chance he will be the next senator from California. He's probably the most high-profile Democrat to say that President Biden needs to pass the torch. So this is very significant.
And there's been a bit of a sense, hasn't there, during the RNC this week, that enormous story of the doubts about Joe Biden's future, all of the talk about it has rather gone on the down low among the relevant people over these past few days, maybe out of respect for the president or recognition that this is not the time to go public when Donald Trump has the spotlight. Maybe they feel, I don't know, maybe they feel that would just be too humiliating for Joe Biden to do that, more of a stab in the back when Donald Trump is hogging the spotlight. Does that mean a lot has been going on behind the scenes between these senior Democrats? And will the dam in any way burst when this is over? Because it's over tomorrow.
I mean, that's the thing we're all waiting and watching for. I think you're right that since the assassination attempt on Trump, there has certainly been more of a muted approach to these calls for Biden to step aside among Democrats. We haven't heard many people go public in the last few days until Schiff. It's been mostly a private affair. Yeah. But I do think, it's very possible to watch for Friday as a day. Once this Republican convention is wrapped, does Friday become the day that other Democrats feel liberated to go public with their view that Biden should step aside?
Yeah, there could be, from what you're saying there, Ken, given that Adam Schiff is close to Nancy Pelosi, and both of them carry a great deal of weight. Both of those figures have weight and will have a certain orbit, each individually and certainly together. Maybe they're a group, maybe there's a bit of a cabal, if that's not too pejorative a term, that we'll now see raise the flag of, is rebellion the word? I mean, they would call it common sense.
Exactly, and as Ken said, I mean, there's been a more muted approach to this in the last 2-3 days, but that chatter hasn't gone away. There has been a sense, certainly a lot of talk that Pelosi is pulling strings behind the scenes. And as you say, on the common sense matter, we've had more polling today. There's an AP poll out this morning showing that I think 2/3 of Democrats would like Biden to step aside. That's up 10% or something. Since the spring. There's another sort of polling memo doing the rounds in Democratic circles showing that sort of any one of about half a dozen Democratic candidates would do better than Biden. So, as I said, the pressure is mounting, even though the focus has been on the Republicans this week.
I'd love to get both of your insight into the, if you like, the psychology of the Democratic Party where this is concerned. I was talking earlier on to former Ambassador John Bolton, and he used the example from British politics. On the Conservative side in particular, there's a bit of a tradition of utter ruthlessness when a leader is judged to have gone past their sell-by date. And part of that unspoken, unwritten mechanism is that the most senior figures in the party, who've come to be known over the years as the men in grey suits, quietly go as a delegation to see the Prime Minister, and back in the day they would sort of give him a glass of whiskey and say there's a pearl-handled revolver in the desk. Now it's more like telling the Prime Minister, it's time to go, Prime Minister, you do it in your own way, but your time is up. There's no such mechanism in the Democratic party in America. And actually, when you're looking back at Britain, the Labour Party there has been pretty soft when it comes to disposing, or at least incompetent when it comes to exposing of leaders who become a liability. Are Dems not very good at this, Ken?
No, and part of the issue is just the way our process works here in the States. You know, Joe Biden ran for renomination. He went through the primary process. Would you call it an extremely competitive process? No, he had really only token opposition, but he has earned those delegates who will be assembling in Chicago in a few weeks. And from Biden's standpoint, he should be the nominee based on having gone through that process. But I think when you raise these concerns, I mean, what's really driving the psychology here is Trump. I mean, the central organizing principle for Democrats for the last few years has been fighting and challenging Donald Trump every step of the way, and there is just this intense fear that he is in the pole position to be able to become president again, and Democrats do not want to go through another 4 years of Trump, and so that is what's causing all of this consternation.
Yes, exactly, and as Biden keeps saying, he's the only person that's beaten Trump and is determined to do it again. But this Democratic bedwetting, as it's been described by sort of party insiders, is only growing now.
Yeah, and Joe Biden, he knows his party better than anyone, which I guess is maybe the genesis for this idea that he would shortcut the entire process and have an online roll call of the delegates to the Democratic National Convention to install him formally as the candidate before they even get to gather in Chicago at the end of August. What's happening with that? Because I spoke to a senior Democrat a little earlier on the program who said that was an idea that was in the end now seems to be maybe receding. What are you picking up on that, Ken? Yeah,
we got a little news on that this morning. The Rules Committee for the convention, they sort of organize this part of the process. They put out a letter this morning saying that the virtual process will not begin until August 1st at the earliest.
Right.
So they're going to give it a little more time, and they are, in this letter, are very open about their view that they are not trying to rush anything. They are not trying to short-circuit the system. But in their view, the original reason for having this virtual process stands, which is that Ohio had a requirement to get on the ballot. You had to be on the ballot by August 7th, which is happening before the Democratic convention in Chicago later in August. And now the Ohio legislature seemingly fixed this problem, but from the Democrats' standpoint, the Democrats I speak to, they feel like it's still open to potential legal challenges, and so they don't want to risk not having a presidential candidate at the top of the ticket in Ohio, and so they feel strongly they have to go ahead with this virtual process. Now, there are a lot of Democrats who just think that's a fig leaf and think it's just a very easy excuse to quickly nominate Joe Biden virtually and not have a big floor fight in Chicago in the middle of August, which would play out in front of cameras and show disunity among Democrats, which is the last thing they want to show.
Okay, now I want to move on in a moment to talk about what's going on right here in Milwaukee, because there's plenty going on, including this evening, the big event, which is the floor speech of J.D. Vance, the vice presidential pick for Donald Trump's running mate. It's his chance to show who he is. So a lot of people in America, that are in the wider world, that'll be seeing him almost for the first, not almost, it will be seeing him for the first time. I want to get your thoughts on all of that. But before I do, and before we go to a quick break, I want to do what I love doing on this show and ask you absurdly unfair questions and ask you to call it for me. Is Joe Biden going to make it to November, Ken?
I think he has every intention to stay on the ballot. I don't think he will go quietly, and he has the delegates in his favor. It's really up to him to pull out, and so at this point, I think he's just going to stick to his guns and stay on the ballot.
Okay, you've elegantly rather ducked my question, but you're entirely entitled to do that. Do you want to make that call? Is he going to be there, Hugh?
I agree. Actually, I mean, I think at the moment he will, and as Ken pointed out, this sort of technical issue with the Ohio nomination sort of shortens the deadline, and it brings it much closer for Biden's team to run out the clock on this, which is clearly what they hope to do. Now, does Schiff's comments change things? Yes, they do. But it's going to need more than that, and that's the trouble. Every Democrat going public is just another self-inflicted wound for the party.
It's kind of a rule of political physics that things move sometimes bit by bit slowly, and then suddenly bang.